Alright, so in the world of British professional boxing, Chris Eubank Jr. was able to get his get back against Liam Smith, and it was a breeze for him. After getting stopped inside 4 rounds a couple months ago, Eubank Jr. finished the fight in round 10, and he looked incredible. This is undoubtedly the best performance of his career by far. The game planning, the execution, the dominance in all areas, and the composure were all there. A lot of people thought Chris Eubank Jr. was going to lose this fight. They thought he was caught in between styles because of his relations with Roy Jones as his head coach. They also thought that maybe Liam Smith was the fighter that had all the tools to beat him. But for me, I picked Eubank Jr. to win the rematch because I wasn't convinced that Liam Smith could stop him again. The way he finished Chris Eubank Jr. was great, but everything before that didn't convince me that Liam Smith could beat Eubank again, especially if the fight were to end in points. People were saying that Smith was dominating in that fight, but I don't think he was. Even though Eubank didn't look the best in that fight, the strategy of him staying on the outside and sticking and moving was generating success. The only difference was that Eubank didn't really sit down on his punches in the first fight compared to the second fight. I knew that if he stayed behind the jab, sat down on his combos, and shot select, that he would be fine, that he would beat Liam Smith with ease, and he did. Not to mention that Eubank Jr. didn't get knocked out cold. I didn't think a loss like this for him would completely change him as a fighter, because mentally you could see that he wanted to keep going. He got up so many times and wanted to continue to fight. So I knew that Chris Eubank wasn't going to be the type of guy that would go down so easily. So now let's analyze the fight. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't need to say too much because the fight was the exact same from the opening bell up until the stoppage. You could really label this fight as an exhibition. There was not one moment where Chris Eubank was under any adversity. I don't think Liam Smith even won 1 round. Chris Eubank Jr. did something so well in this fight, and it was the fact that he was able to expose the high guard by doing so many different things. One of those things was the jab. Chris Eubank's jab was doing absolutely everything in this fight. He was throwing it from the right distance and he was active with it. He was constantly closing the high guard with the jab. Smith had an inactive high guard in this fight. He was stationary and very predictable with it. A high guard already hinders your vision in the ring. An inactive high guard is even worse because you essentially can't see anything if you're getting jabbed. Smith had to keep addressing the jab, but it was constantly breaking through his guard, and eventually it became the norm in this fight. Sometimes there were moments when he was just standing right in front of Eubank Jr. and he did nothing to avoid the jab besides taking it on the chin. And Eubank was fantastic in terms of touching Smith's guard and even going down to the body with it as well. Secondly, since the jab was generating so much success, Eubank decided to work behind it with some beautiful uppercuts. This is a fantastic way to expose a high guard because they can't see the uppercut. Since the jab was already closing the high guard, Smith couldn't see what was going to come behind it. He can only guess what's going to come after. Normally, if you throw the jab, you tend to throw the right hand right after. So Smith did this one thing the entire fight, and he paid for it every single time. He kept changing levels and dropping down to avoid the right hand, but he was running into so many uppercuts. That's how he got dropped in the 4th round. He kept ducking his head down, and Eubank read it from the very beginning. And honestly, if I'm being honest, he read it since the last fight as well. Thirdly, Eubank was finally sitting down on his combinations. When he had Smith hurt, he would throw uppercuts, hooks, and rip shots to the body. He was putting everything together, and this is what he needed to do to win this fight. Being slick was only going to work until it didn't. In this fight, Eubank needed to be mean. He needed to push the aggressive fighter on the back foot, and once he did that, it was done from the get-go. He was so comfortable and dominant that he was throwing like 20 punch combinations in this fight. Obviously that could be very dangerous, but at the same time, Smith was offering literally nothing. He was inactive and he fought at Eubank's pace the entire fight. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the lateral movement of Eubank. He was moving side to side to avoid being a stationary target. He did very well to stick and move in this fight, and this strategy gave Liam Smith a ton of problems. And if I'm being quite honest, he had this in him in the last fight. It's just he made some crucial errors and it cost him the fight. Welcome to the fight game, where every single mistake that you commit is unforgiving. Now I do have to give credit to Smith for fighting through what appeared to be an ankle injury when he got dropped. I wasn't too sure because I didn't notice that Smith was visibly having problems with his left leg during the fight. However, fighting with a sprained ankle is very hard, let alone a broken ankle or a torn ligament. So good on Smith for being a warrior, but don't get it twisted, his performance was horrendous. He's gonna have to go back to the drawing board and weigh his decisions. There's also no need for a trilogy match as well. This fight wasn't even competitive at all. all. This was a walk in the park for Eubank. He literally did whatever he wanted to Liam Smith. He was better on the outside, and he was better on the inside. That's where Liam Smith was supposed to be better, and yet Eubank dominated on the inside. So all this talk about a trilogy, no, we don't need it. He wasn't even winning the fight in the first fight prior to the stoppage. So now with a victory like this, Eubank has a ton of options. He's called out Triple G, I believe, but I don't think anyone wants to see that right now. Personally, for me, I think we gotta run the Conor Benn fight again. The money's there, the storyline is there, and the anticipation is there. The fight fell through because Conor Benn tested positive for an illegal substance, but stylistically, it'll be a great fight to watch. Conor Benn, despite what you think about him now, he's going to bring the fight to Chris Eubank. He's a very explosive and aggressive fighter. Eubank is going to have to box smart, but also be vicious like how he did against Liam Smith. And also, we need to mention this. Bomac is no doubt the leading contender for Coach of the Year. He entered Eubank's camp with like 4 weeks to go until the fight, and look what Eubank was able to do. And obviously, we can't forget about Bud's performance against Spence. And if Bud wins the rematch against ESJ in probably December of this year, he's no doubt going to be the Coach of the Year. Who's ahead of him right now? Nobody. Simple. And what's incredible is that Bomac wasn't even a great fighter at all. When he was competing, he wasn't considered a great, yet he's one of the greatest coaches in pro boxing right now. It just goes to show that there's a difference between knowing and doing. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, what do you think is next for Chris Eubank Jr.? Is it the Conor Benn fight? Maybe a title opportunity? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Please follow me on Twitter. I post a lot of tweets about combat sports, my opinions, my rants, etc. So if you can't get enough of this channel, please head over to my Twitter for more content like this. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace.